Developing overnight, Israel's security cabinet approved a plan to take control of Gaza City. That is the largest city in the Gaza Strip, where many displaced Palestinians from the war-torn region have sought shelter. The decision to take over Gaza City has generated strong opposition from the international community, and reportedly even Israel's military chief was against the move. To better understand the new developments in the Middle East, let's welcome Negah Angha. She's a former senior advisor at the U.S. Department of State under President Biden. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Can you talk about the significance of this development? And in practical terms, what does taking control of Gaza City mean? What will it look like for the people living there and the war in the region?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Israel's cabinet literally just approved the Gaza City operation, but there is daylight between Netanyahu's far-right ministers and the IDF chief. The military essentially warns full control risks hostages' lives and could really bog down what is already a very exhausted, burnt-out military. So on paper right now, Israel controls about 75% of Gaza, but control is relative when Hamas is embedded everywhere in civilian areas, tunnels. So we have to caveat when we talk about control. And then again, with the military sort of sweeping in without those precision raids or, those surprise raids to rescue hostages, it'll not only risk both the lives of the hostages, but overall stability. And this next phase in Gaza City could essentially displace 1 million people, deepen the humanitarian crisis that we've already seen, and just leave Israel holding the governance bag, the responsibilities that it already has said it doesn't want to maintain.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Israeli officials say they don't want to hold on to Gaza City permanently, but instead hand over the region to an Arab group that is not part of Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. But they've given no timeline or roadmap to do that. Is that even a realistic goal?
I mean, it's a huge question mark, to be honest. I mean, no Arab state has volunteered to govern post-war Gaza, especially not after an operation that will essentially kill a large number of civilians without a clear political plan. So Israel itself has avoided even discussing civilian governance for 2 years. So we're really looking at a very dangerous vacuum. And without a credible alternative, the risk is you remove Hamas military, but then or remove Hamas militarily, but then you leave chaos, right? And that breeds the next crisis. And without a credible plan for governance, military gains risk becoming a replay of 1967 and 2005, which was occupation without stability.
In recent weeks, Israel has come under growing pressure from other Western allies to end the war in Gaza. Certainly that pressure will accelerate with this latest announcement of taking over Gaza City. But will this change anything?
Look, I think we should take a step back. I mean, the bigger picture is that Netanyahu and his key advisors are very clear. They see this as an unfinished business until Hamas is defeated, much like the U.S. saw al-Qaeda after 9/11. So, for example, the U.S. itself is facing a balancing act of pressuring Israel on aid and hostages while defending its strategic interests. And then you have moves by the international community like France, the UK, and Canada to recognize Palestinian statehood in the middle of a war, and that collapsed ceasefire talks. Hamas saw it as proof that violent resistance works, and sources that I have in the White House have said that they know for a fact that because of that development, Hamas walked away from ceasefire talks because, of course, they would. Why would they not? Why would they even need to stay in the talks? So timing matters, and at this point in time, every decision, every diplomatic move is incredibly important, because otherwise it can set back the goal that everyone's seeking, which is 2 states.
A lot of open questions there and uncertainty there. But let's shift gears to another geopolitical crisis, the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump has warned if a peace deal isn't reached, he'll enact new U.S. sanctions, not just on Russia, but other nations that buy Russian oil, including India and China. Negah, based on your experience and what we've seen in the past with Russia, will this threat of additional sanctions work, or will the president just extend whatever deadline there is for an agreement?
Again, I think the real play here is that Putin wants legitimacy from Trump. So he wants an Oval Office style engagement before he even sits down with Zelensky. And President Trump is using what we call a carrot and sticks approach. So heavy tariffs on Russian oil buyers like India, like we saw yesterday, to hurt Putin's revenue, but paired with a carrot, which is a lure of a meeting. And it's notable that the decisions being made by the Trump administration is far tougher than what the Biden team did, such as these heavy tariffs on India. But the risk is that giving Putin too much room early on will just allow him to stall and gain advantage without really committing to real concessions. Because, I mean, Putin's aim is to box in President Trump before Ukraine's at the table.
And the president does plan to meet face-to-face with Vladimir Putin next week. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is concerned that he's not going to be part of that face-to-face meeting to discuss peace terms. What is your take on what the outcome will be with that?
I think, again, I think President Trump himself is really seeking a meeting. He wants to be able to have those face-to-face conversations. President Zelensky has every right to be concerned in that case because it is following essentially what Putin's aim is, which is to box in the president, not allow them at the table, but then also not fulfill any real concessions, just simply providing what President Putin is looking for, and that's legitimacy right now on the international stage.
Really quickly before we go, because we don't have a lot of time, but are we any closer to a resolution with that Russia-Ukraine war now than we were a year ago?
That's a very tough question. I think we're in a very delicate moment. I think President Trump has made very clear that he is looking to seek peace. I think one of the things that we need to be focused on too is that there's a lot of heavy emphasis on the Russia track right now, which will put the Gaza agenda off the priority list in Washington, and that could be disconcerting. But I think President Trump is putting everything in to see if he can seek out a solution with Russia.
Okay, Negah Angha, former senior advisor at the U.S. Department of State, thank you for your insight and for speaking with us this morning.
Thank you again for having me.